1, 2, 3, test, test. Hi, early birds. We'll start in about a half a minute. Let me get organized. Thank you. Thank you all. Let's pray that Facebook gives us no trouble. Well, good evening or good morning, depending on where you are, or good midday. This is the Tibet Center, Kunchab Tarduling, a Buddhist meditation and study center located in New York City and northern New Jersey. And this is our twice weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma, specifically Stages on the Path to Enlightenment, a step-by-step gradual guide to full Buddhahood. If there's any problems with the transmission, the face, you got a big problem. The picture, the sound, etc., let me know. All the prayers we say are on the Tibet Center website. If there's anyone for whom you want us to pray for has recently deceased, please put their names in the chat box or the comment section, whatever you call it. I don't see them all, so we do our best. We're under the direction of Chabje Ling Rinpoche, His Eminence Chabje Ling Rinpoche, and also under the more intimate direction of Geshe Tupten Lunda, the Kensur of Rato Kensur, the ex-abbot of Rato Monastery, also known in the Western world as Nikki. That's easy enough. So tonight, to announce what we have on tap, we'll say goodbye to chapter 12, maybe introduce chapter 13 of the volume 3 of the LAM Chenma. We'll also hear from Korean Buddhists, which we haven't heard from, at least not recently, I can't remember, but some little aphorisms that they have as the appetizer. And then we'll also hear from Geshe Sopa's comment on Nagarjuna's letter to a friend, where he illuminates what nirvana is and what renunciation is all about, because we have to know what nirvana is, etc., since we're seeking it. Kunchab Tarduling, pervaded means pervaded by seekers of liberation. That's the name of our center. So, that's what we're looking. All right. Anyway, prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West, for all the people living here together with their near ones who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them. May all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas called profound illumination, and at the same time noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, No appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge, and since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gate Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the bodhisattva mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound, transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and the Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One. And now refuge and bodhisattva vow, which of course we say 3 times. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings, as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain. Until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. May all the pains of living creatures ripen solely upon myself, and through the might of the Bodhisattva Sangha, may all beings experience happiness. May the teachings which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manjagosha, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. And now, as a cause for the swift return of Rato Chungla Rinpoche, His Holiness advises us to say this prayer which he wrote, a prayer for a swift return, on the website, of course. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, soul refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron robes, Guru Lozang Tubuang Dorje Chang, please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech of the Victor Lozang's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening. Yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence's end to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by bodhicitta drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings and wish-fulfilling jewel, return as the glory of Lozang Tenpe. Magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Karma Yama, and Sri Mata Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors, may you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight base. Okay, just let me check to see if we're getting out. Oh, yes, people in a Bulla Bulla, Rodney, yes. Okay, good. So the chat box is working somewhat. Good morning, Kuala Lumpur. Okay, so as advertised or as promised, or whatever the word you want to use, we never hear from the Koreans. There's plenty of Koreans in the United States with delicious food. And we also have, this is a Korean Zen, which has been around for a long time and went through a stagnant period and then was revived. One of the teachers who revived it mid 19th century, early 20th, was a gentleman named Kyung Ho. I don't, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, please forgive me. Those who are Korean. This book is called Thousand Peaks. It's a brief overview of the Zen Buddhist tradition in Korea, with the usual koans and anecdotes of teachers, etc. Kyung Ho died in 1912. Actually, before I give any of his wise sayings or whatever it is, aphorisms, here's a poem he wrote when he was dying. April 25th, 1912, he summoned two of his disciples, the Zen masters Mangong and Su Wal, to his bedside and to hear his last will and testament, and then he wrote the following poem, 4 lines. Light from the moon of clear mind drinks up everything in the world. When mind and light both disappear, what is this? That's it. That's his death poem, page 169 of this great book. So, the book is called Thousand Peaks, and some of Kyung-gyo's sayings, I'm reading from page 172, have found a prominent place in Korean Zen lore, and they should find a place here. As you read them, as we go through them, there's 11 of them that they represent here. Very close to the mind training tradition in Tibetan Buddhism. I love when we see parallels in these two traditions that weren't close for a while, and now it's all gelling. I love it. It really makes me feel good. Gives you a confidence. All right, enough. Zen teachers have since his time have used these sayings to point the way to their own students and help them to deepen their awareness. Okay. Number 1, real mind training. Don't wish for perfect health. In perfect health, there is greed and wanting. So an ancient said, make good medicine from the suffering of sickness. Sounds familiar. Number 2, don't hope for a life without problems. Well, I do. Hey. An easy life results in a judgmental and lazy mind. So an ancient once said, accept the anxieties and difficulties of this life. Well, they're going to get here anyway, is my opinion. I don't know, so you might as well accept them. Pardon me. Number 3, don't expect your practice to be always clear of obstacles. Without hindrances, the mind that seeks enlightenment may be burnt out. So an ancient said, attain deliverance in disturbances. Very real world. You're going to have problems. Anyone who knows this. So, number 4, don't expect to practice hard and not experience the weird. Hard practice that evades the unknown makes for a weak commitment. So an ancient once said, help hard practice by befriending every demon. They can be real demons that you see. Most likely they're the demons of attachment, etc., and so forth. But hold these, if they're real demons, hold them with compassion. You have to accept and know that this is the situation, and then you progress. And we all of us who've done a little practice know this. So have come across these problems. 5, don't expect to finish doing something easily. If you happen to acquire something easily, the will is made weaker. So an ancient once said, try again and again to complete what you're doing. Joyous perseverance. Number 6, make friends, but don't expect any benefit for yourself. Friendship only for oneself harms trust. So an ancient once said, have an enduring friendship with purity in heart. I wonder if an ancient said this or he's just using that as a prop just to be, not showing off as the wise old man or something. I don't know. Anyway, the advice is very good. Very real world. Number 7, don't expect others to follow your direction. When it happens that others go along with you, it results in pride. So an ancient once said, use your will to bring peace between people. Number 8, expect no reward for an act of charity. Expecting something in return leads to a scheming mind. So an ancient once said, throw false spirituality away like a pair of old shoes. Number 9, don't seek profit over and above what your work is worth. Acquiring false profit makes a fool of oneself. So an ancient once said, be rich in honesty. Number 10, don't try to make clarity of mind with severe practice. Every mind comes to hate severity. And where is clarity in mortification? So I'll say that again. The idea is skillful means when you practice. Don't try to make clarity of mind with severe practice. Every mind comes to hate severity. And where is clarity in mortification? So an ancient once said, clear a passageway through severe practice. Skillfully do severe practice. In other words, yeah, I got to do this. There's no clarity there. There's a big fogginess in mind with your will trying to over-push things. It's very interesting. Finally, be equal to every hindrance. Buddha attained supreme enlightenment without hindrance. Seekers after truth are schooled in adversity. When they are confronted by a hindrance, they can't be overcome. Then, cutting free, their treasure is great. So I find a lot of parallels there between, the advice of the six perfections and, of course, the mind training, the Lojong tradition, or whatever you want to call it. A lot of the other koans are just as enigmatic as the Japanese koans. I mean, it's really, or koans, whatever you call it. We'll hear more from them, from the different Korean Zen masters represented in this book. And of course, it came from China. Some of the Korean masters deliberately left their monasteries to live closer to the shoreline where they could have some interaction with China, because for a while Korea itself closed its borders as Japan did, and it was then known as the Hermit Kingdom, as North Korea is known as today. It's very strange. So there's a tradition of xenophobia, you want to call it? I don't know. Usually it's the local warlord wanting to keep everybody in control. So, Nagarjuna's advice for Buddhists, this is a letter to a friend, the Shiraleka. They take the root, Geshe Sopa takes the root verses of that letter and explains them. So now, I'm going to read from page 270. A little bit about suffering, a bit about renunciation, and then a definition, not only definition, an explanation of nirvana with the idea of selling it. It's like a brochure presentation. I don't know what to say. So, Geshe Sopa on page 270 in this wonderful book, Nagarjuna's Advice for Buddhists, translated wonderfully by Beth Newman. I don't know if she's Venerable Beth Newman or just Beth Newman. Somebody who goes to Madison will find out. Mark probably knows. Anyway, at the very beginning of his teaching career, the Buddha taught the reality of suffering. He wanted his followers to understand the nature of existence in the world. The Buddha didn't teach this because he wanted his students to worry and to become even more unhappy. He taught it because there are benefits on meditating on suffering. First of all, without having meditated on suffering, everything may seem to be fine. If you feel that things are actually okay, you won't desire liberation from samsara for yourself or others. But when you understand the pervasive nature of suffering, you will want it to cease permanently. We don't understand how even what we call pleasure is suffering. Yes, things are good in this way, but we'll leave it at that. Second, without renunciation, which is a feeling of revulsion for all involuntary rebirth. He phrases that nicely. Renunciation is a feeling of revulsion for all involuntary rebirth. Any spiritual practice will be shallow and ineffective. Your motivation has to be proper. Meditation on suffering doesn't mean just repeating the word suffering, suffering, suffering. No, that doesn't work. Meditating on suffering means to examine and analyze the situation that you are in. The situation we are in with an aerial view. Where did I come from? Where am I going? And come to the conclusion, this life isn't the whole thing. Because a lot of people walk around, this is it, everything. No. So, you contemplate how pain, impermanence, impurity, birth, aging, sickness, death, undesirable things happening, and losing or not getting desirable things all fall down on you like rain. That's our nature. This is the nature of water to be wet, fire to be hot. This is our nature. We're impermanent. Subject to death, sickness, old age, the whole 9 yards. That's it. So that has to be accepted, and then we work from there. We work from what we have. So when this becomes clear, you will want to know how to eliminate suffering. Shantideva said, the cause of happiness is rare, and there are so many causes of suffering. Without suffering, renunciation will never arise. Therefore, you, mind, be steadfast. That's the 12th verse of the 6th chapter of Shantideva's book. He now is talking, he's giving it the title, Introduction to the Practice of Bodhisattvas. This book has had 20 titles over the years at least, but we call it Shantideva's book, even though he wrote two, but leave it at that. A human life is short, Geshe Sopa continues, and most people think selfishly every moment of it. Because of their mental afflictions, people do so many things thinking they are working for happiness. However, their human intelligence makes them experts at acting in an evil way. Even actions that seem wholesome can be the causes of misery. You need to investigate what causes you your problems. When you feel disgust for suffering and its causes, you will be motivated to begin to engage in the practices that result in your attainment of a spiritual goal. You are truly seeking a spiritual goal only after you develop renunciation that is spontaneous and arises constantly day and night. In other words, it's an underlying thought about everything. This isn't the whole show. This is the happiness I have here is very limited. A lot of things here we can't control in life. We have to come to grips with that truth. So he goes on. How important is it to make an effort to practice? It is more urgent than putting out a fire. And he gets a little overdone here, but let's say, if your hair suddenly caught on fire, I don't have that problem, you will immediately try to put it out, wouldn't you? Yeah, well, when there is a fire in your house, you would try to put it out so that it doesn't destroy your possessions. If you don't act quickly in these situations, there is the danger that you and your belongings may be badly burned. Everyone understands this. The majority of spiritual practitioners immediately stop what they are doing to put out a fire. But the most skillful yogis know that the faults of samsara are far more dangerous than a fire in the present. Now, this is an extreme example. I don't think this really happens. I think even yogis would put out the fire, but let it roll. They know that at the time of their death is uncertain, and they understand what can happen after this life. They recognize that they are powerless before the force of karma and the mental afflictions. They see the danger of falling into the lower realms, the suffering even in the higher realms, and so on. They don't want any part of it. They want to get out of samsara. Someone who really wants to achieve liberation would not interrupt their spiritual practice even to put out a fire. I don't know about that, but let's let the example stay. He's trying to show you how important it is to practice. They view putting out the fire that is the cause of samsara to be more urgent and important. Their effort is entirely devoted to preventing rebirth in samsara due to karma and the mental afflictions. They work as hard as they can on this before they die. They are not attached to present temporary pleasures and happiness. They're not attached, key word. You have pleasures, happiness, etc., but don't get attached. That's the problem. You can figure that out yourself. You have to, and that's the only way we have to understand it ourselves. They do not forget that their goal is everlasting freedom. Nagarjuna tells us that we should make a similar resolve, for there is no greater goal than that. Of course, to get out of all suffering, to have all eternal happiness, what's greater than that? So, and he quotes Nagarjuna's verse 104. If your hair or clothing was suddenly to catch fire, you would try to put it out immediately. But give that up and make an effort to end rebirth in samsara due to karma. There is no greater purpose than this. He's emphasizing a little extreme, but you got it, okay? You understand. It may seem foolish to advise people to not try to put out a fire. When we look at some of the great yogis of the past, it looks like what they did was crazy. But from their perspective, what we do is crazy. Shantideva spoke pithily about your situation and what you should do about it. Shantideva's 8th chapter, verse number 1. When you have produced diligence, you should stabilize your mind in meditation. He's going from the 4th, diligent, joyful effort, to the 5th, concentration. You should stabilize your mind in meditation. The person whose mind is always distracted lives between the fang jaws of the mental afflictions. Geshe Sopa comments on this. You are in a very dangerous spot. If a predator has caught you in his fangs and is ready to clamp his jaws shut. Yes. The mental afflictions are like fanged jaws. Desire, pride, hatred, ignorance, jealousy, and so on are always ready to rise in your mind. They eat away at any mental strength that you might have and crush your positive resolve. The consequences is that you create samsaric karma. And that karma results in all kinds of miserable experiences. Therefore, Shantideva says that you should always strive to stabilize your mind in meditation. In this context, meditation doesn't just mean just meditative concentration. It indicates being alert and mindful so that you don't fall under the power of the mental afflictions. You have to constantly be reading your internal mind. The only mind you have is the internal mind. You have to look internally all the time. We're so distracted by externals. This is the desire realm. Welcome aboard. In other words, meditation is to watch your mind. So, in order to meditate, you don't have to sit on a cushion, unmoving, with your eyes closed. You still have to eat, sleep, and go to the toilet. He's very practical. No, don't go. Anyway, the combination of your body and mind are like a boat that can take you across the ocean of samsara. You have to keep this boat in good repair for it to be useful. Your body requires protection from temperature variations. It needs food and drink. You need companions for assistance, and so forth. Yes, we're social animals, as His Holiness always says. Part of having a healthy mind is having the ability to socialize properly. Of course, yogis go in retreat. No, they're high yogis. They know how to be alone without being unhappy. So, in the meantime, that's why we have the Sangha. You care for your body so that you stay healthy and can practice. But in every situation, wherever you go, whatever you are doing, you should be aware of what your mind is doing. Is anger arising? Is desire arising? You should be aware of what you are about to say or do. This is the most powerful type of good practice. Being aware of your mind all the time is the way to begin gaining control of your samsaric rebirths. Not just control of the mind, control of your future lives. So, stakes are high. Freedom from suffering only comes from the complete cessation of uncontrolled rebirth due to karma and the mental afflictions. We call this permanent cessation of samsara nirvana. In order to desire nirvana, in addition to seeing the defects of samsara, you have to appreciate the benefits of your own liberation from it. So, what is nirvana? He asked the musical question. Nagarjuna says, verse 105 of the friendly letter, the Suraleka, pure ethical conduct, wisdom, and meditative stabilization lead to nirvana. Immaculate peace and control. That's his little definition. This state is ageless, deathless, eternal, and separate from earth, water, fire, air, and the sun and the moon, separate from the elements, separate from everything. Okay, so he's going to, Geshe Sopa will now, comment, expand on the meaning. On page 273. What makes nirvana something worth attaining? Nirvana means to have passed beyond sorrow or sadness permanently. It is naturally peaceful. So these are things we should click in our minds. That's what I want. That's what I want. Yes. Put that in my cart. This piece has two aspects: nirvana with remainder and nirvana without remainder. He will explain those things. We hear these terms all the time. The first is the peace that you attain when you have completely gotten rid of all the mental afflictions through your practices of morality, meditation, and wisdom, the three baskets. Nirvana with remainder we're talking about, right? You are still alive. You have the living, breathing body you had while practicing. Your body is still an ordinary, impure, and physical phenomenon. Stay with it. But your mind is pure and free from karma and the mental afflictions. You have become an arhat. Not only a noble being who saw emptiness directly, but an arhat. You're out of samsara. This is called nirvana with remainder. And what's the remainder? The remainder, he says, is your body that resulted from previous karma. Oh. Until you die, you will have the contaminated aggregate of the body, even though your mental aggregates were purified. The form skandha will still be contaminated. No big deal. After your death, you have both mental and physical purity. It is peace that is the complete stoppage of the contaminated aggregates. Rebirth is completely finished. This is nirvana without remainder. Now, bodhisattvas choose to be reborn, but not out of karma and delusion, out of compassion. Motivated by compassion. I must go right to these beings in samsara, and I must help them. They are not in samsara. They appear there, and they wander around in there. Bodhisattvas we're talking about. Buddhas, of course, something else, higher than that. The second quality of nirvana is that you are tamed, or you could say disciplined or controlled. Even before an arhat dies, when they are in nirvana with remainder, that's the older, their sensory organs are under control. They still have physical and mental sensory perception, but they do not react the way that ordinary people do. They see, hear, eat, and so forth, but without any desire, hatred, jealousy, or other mental afflictions. All their senses are calm and peaceful. Both nirvana with remainder and without remainder are without stains. Dream I think the word is in Tibetan, stainless, whatever. They are like clean, clear water from which all muddy residues have been removed. Even those in nirvana with remainder have removed the stains of the mental afflictions. They have no desire, hatred, and so forth. They are not stirred up by ignorance, etc. Having removed the stains, they are immaculate. No afflicted desire, we should say. They probably, if they're bodhisattvas, have the desire to free all beings. That's not the same category as afflicted desire. When you achieve nirvana, we're on page 274 for those of you who are keeping score. I wish to get the book. When you achieve nirvana without remainder, the verse states there will be no aging and death due to the power of karma and the mental afflictions. Nirvana's peace is inexhaustible and lasts forever. I'll sign for that. Whoa. Nirvana's peace is inexhaustible and lasts forever. In other words, there is no going back to impure rebirth. We're not talking about the formless realm of the deities here and there and subtle bliss, etc. They're in samsara. This is out of samsara. Oh, hello. Remind ourselves of that all the time. Nirvana is the complete and permanent cessation of ignorance and the mental afflictions. In other words, nirvana is a cessation, not a physical state. You are free of the elements. You don't need sunlight or moonlight. Our ordinary world is relying upon the elements, the sun and the moon. We have an earthly body and senses. Our karma and mental afflictions toss us around, and when the elements are out of balance, we suffer and we get sick. In contrast, emancipation is pure, perfected wisdom. Emancipation equals nirvana or liberation. There is no potential for anything other than this perfect mind. This is the case for those who attain the final result of the Hinayana path, nirvana without remainder, as well as Mahayana practitioners who have attained Buddhahood. We won't get into the distinctions here because we'll cover that over and over again. So you may wonder, how does a Buddha help ordinary sentient beings? The enlightened mind has the ability to manifest into something physical in order to help others. The mind can manifest into something physical in order to help others. Buddhas manifest in accord with the mental capacity of those they are trying to help. So sometimes they manifest as high bodhisattvas, sometimes as a human, and sometimes in other forms. Their bodies can look ordinary, but they are actually completely free from any ordinariness. They are not killed by disease, accidents, or any other polluted cause. There's a story about a Sangha that illustrates this. So he's going to go into the story of a Sangha. You've already heard it. Maybe you don't want to hear it again, but we'll do it because we don't have much to do in the LAM room today. We're going to close out chapters and start a new one. So, around 900 years after the time of the Buddha, Mahayana had almost disappeared from India. A widow, a Sangha's mother, wanted the Mahayana teachings to survive. In ancient India, it was traditional for a boy to take up the same profession as his father. But when the young Asanga asked his mother what his father's profession had been, she replied, "I didn't give birth to you so that you could take up your father's job. Your job is to study pure Mahayana Buddhism." Whoa, a drill sergeant in our midst. "Then you will spread it throughout the world." Obviously, Asanga's mother was no ordinary person. As he grew older, Asanga wondered, how can I do that? It's a huge job, he thought. Maybe I could do it if I were to have a vision of the future Buddha, the great Bodhisattva Maitreya. He could give me all the Mahayana teachings. Therefore, Asanga decided to do a lot of purification, preparatory practices, and ritual recitations in order to have a vision of Maitreya. He went off to an isolated place and did a 3-year retreat. But after 3 years, nothing had happened. All his hard work hadn't resulted in anything. He left his retreat, and on the road back to town, he saw an old man holding 2 ends of a cotton string. He was rubbing the string back and forth across a rock. Sangha asked, "What are you doing, old man?" "Oh," he said, "I'm trying to cut the rock." The Sangha thought, this old man has the courage to do something that seems impossible. How can he cut a rock with a cotton string? I lack such courage. I shouldn't give up after 3 years. I should go back and retreat. He went back. This gave Asanga the courage to practice for 3 more years, but still nothing happened. So once again he left his retreat place. He saw water slowly dripping, drop by drop, from a cliff in a cliff face. Years of this slow drip had created a large hole in the boulder below. Asanga thought, this water is dripping slowly and gently. It feels soft on my hand, but it has eroded a huge hole in the hard rock. I should try in the same way to gain a vision of Maitreya. I should go back. He went into retreat and did 3 more years of practice, so now it was 9 years in all. But still nothing happened. He again left his mountain retreat. In a crack between some rocks, he saw a bird's nest. There was a bird coming in and out to feed her chicks. He noted that the slabs of rock around the nest were smooth and shiny. He realized that the soft feathers of the bird's wings had smoothed the roughness of the rock. This too gave him courage. So he went back into retreat for another 3 years. Now, after 12 years of practice, Asanga was completely exhausted. He was exhausted. He came out of his retreat place. He saw an old female dog on the road. Her rear legs had been badly injured and the wounds were filled with maggots and worms. The dog was begging for food. When he saw this, Asanga felt great compassion and love for the dog. He wanted to save her. He thought, first, I should remove the maggots and worms, but it wouldn't be good to kill the insects in order to save the dog. In order to give the maggots and worms something to eat so they wouldn't die, he cut a piece of flesh out of his thigh. He's a bodhisattva, this guy. Now he had to move the worms and maggots to do it, but they were so delicate and his fingers were so rough. If he tried to pick up the worms and maggots with his fingers, he would crush them to death. He decided that only his tongue was soft enough to do the work of moving them from the dog to his piece of flesh. So he stuck out his tongue, closed his eyes so that he wouldn't see this disgusting sight, and leaned forward. But his tongue hit the ground. There was no dog. Maitreya was standing right there. Asanga was a bit upset. This guy's a New Yorker. Hey, where have you been? He'd been working so hard for 12 years, and in frustration he said, "Your kindness is rather limited." Maitreya replied, No, I was with you all the time, but your obstacles prevented you from seeing me directly. The old man with the string, the dripping water, the bird's wings, and the dog were all manifestations of Maitreya's wisdom and compassion. When out of love and compassion, Asanga tried to help the dog, he created a tremendous amount of merit. This merit purified all the remaining obstacles that had prevented him from seeing the future Buddha. Then Asanga was able to go to Tushita heaven, where Maitreya sits today, and receive all the teachings. He realized the four realities for Aryas. He had complete disgust with samsara. He saw how to free all sentient beings from samsara by fighting the causes of an uncontrolled rebirth. When he returned to earth from Tushita, he brought with him 5 scriptures that are known as the 5 books of Maitreya and taught them. One of them is Uttara Tantra. He wrote commentaries on them and other books in order to teach others how to attain liberation. Now that we have an idea of the value of nirvana, we look at the various descriptions of the means to attain it. So that's Geshe Sopa's advice for the evening, for your life. So I said we would finish this commentary. Last time I said, well, we'll pick it up. So the same dollar I put in the book is still there. No interest, though. Send it to Republic Bank or someone. They're struggling. Silicon Valley Bank. I think they're gone, right? Okay. We're talking about, it's a chapter called Rational Analysis, and it's talking about the proper use of ultimate analysis. It doesn't cover everything. It's a strict, like you had a button on your computer, now go into ultimate analysis. Okay. That ultimate analysis is not something you look at the real world with. No. The real world you look at with your ordinary logic. Oh, this is a good thing to buy. It's this, it's that. That's fine. We're not looking for the underlying mode of being of the object. But ultimate analysis is looking for just that. So, this is page 148 of Geshe Sopa's LAM 5. So, and he's talking about it's unskillful when you negate the conventional when you're looking for the ultimate. Now, the conventional is the conventional. It's not under the sphere of the authority of ultimate analysis. It's free of that. It doesn't concern itself. So, almost at the bottom of the page, how could such an unskillful person be suitable as a master to explain the 2 truths? In other words, the 2 truths have to be complementary, not contradictory. Conversely, if there is not the slightest internal contradiction between the explanations of the ultimate and the conventional, then it would be contradictory to say that the analysis establishing the ultimate negates the establishment of the conventional. In other words, if one's establishment of the 2 truths is not internally contradictory, then the reasoning that establishes the ultimate cannot negate the conventional. That's all. It would be inconsistent to claim that it would. That's all. We have 2 truths. They're called truths because there's value in both of them. Don't throw them out. That's all. They're called truth. Dempa, right? Kunzab Dempa, whatever. Since you, Chandra Kirti's clear words, the Prasanapada says, since you are not skillful with respect to ultimate and conventional truth, you sometimes incorrectly apply ultimate analysis to the conventional and thereby refute it. You don't know what you're doing when you're analyzing. He's talking to us, and not these opponents are all foils. I never met one. No. Since we are skillful in establishing conventional truth, we remain with the world's position. As His Holiness says, things are as they are, as they work, don't analyze them, that's fine. But if you want to know the ultimate mode of being of these objects and you want to get out of samsara, you better understand their ultimate mode of being. In order to refute a certain conventional position, we use our appropriate reason to negate another. And like the worldly elders, we negate only you who completely damage the traditions of the world. We do not negate the conventional. We negate only those proponents of philosophical systems that repudiate conventional phenomena, but we do not negate conventional things. Geshe Sopa explains this little passage. In the first sentence of the Passion, you refers to the realists, the essentialists, the realists, who hold that whatever exists must inherently exist. And if something does not inherently exist, then it can't exist. In this sense, it may also apply to the earlier Tibetan Madhyamikas who identify the object of negation too broadly, as we saw in the last chapter, and we already forgot. No, but that's too broad. Chandrakirti addresses people who think this way and says that they should establish what is correct conventionally by its own ordinary criteria rather than rejecting something conventional on the basis of ultimate analysis. There are many correct conventional logical proofs and negations. Conventional things are negated by means of other conventional logical proofs. We know that a certain horned animal is not a horse because it has horns. We know that there is a fire on a certain mountain pass because we see smoke there. There is no need to deal with these things in terms of the two truths. Chandrakirti says that imposing ultimate analysis on conventional things in a manner that negates conventional things is not a skillful way to posit the two truths. It's very surgical, in other words. So you have to understand what you're doing, first of all, what's conventionalities, what's ultimate, etc., and so forth. You read, you put the book down, you come back the next week, you read it again. That's how it works, at least for me. Others may have real sharp minds, one-pointed minds, they get it. For me, it's very difficult. For most of us, I assume. Maybe I'm wrong. Of course, one can formulate an apparent negation, Geshe Sopa goes on, of conventionality by applying ultimate analysis, saying, there is no sprout because it cannot be founded by ultimate analysis. Oh, shut up. But this is not a correct means to establish the truths. Chandrakirti does not negate conventional reality. He does not intend that we use ultimate reasoning to negate conventional things. And no one does. The Buddha doesn't. No one who knows what they're doing. In brief, the various Indian Buddhist schools of philosophy try to find logical flaws in one another's presentation of the two truths. No school asserts that its own presentation of the two truths has internal contradictions. They all say, oh, this pans out. And they all use the same terms, by the way. So when you read these different schools, you got to be careful. So they all say this is inherent, that's not inherent, on and on. Same words are used in different contexts. So Geshe Sopa continues, last 3 lines of the page 149. They all try to posit the two truths properly, so that reasoning establishing the ultimate does not negate conventional things and vice versa. They think they're doing that. No school declares that according to its own systems, establishing ultimate truth negates conventional truth. No, they don't say that, but they do. That's what he's saying, pointed out. They're mistakes. These debates between the Madhyamaka and lower schools are not just for the sake of argument, of course not. They are trying to interpret and clearly present the teaching of Buddha, as found in such scriptures as the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, etc. So that ends the commentary on chapter 12. So now we enter into chapter 13, and we have like 3 minutes to do it, but we have to start the chapter and continue on. I try to do in the first part of the presentation things that ordinary new people would find interesting, little sayings and stuff like that, and be more ecumenical rather than stick to the Yellow Hat School of Tibetan Buddhism only, and that's that. No, we can't do that. That's not nice. So, chapter 13. It's called a valid establishment. What does that mean? How do we establish things in the world? Ordinary perception, non-deceptive perception. Of course, if you have like jaundice and everything looks yellow, somebody else is saying, no, it's not yellow. The snow is actually white. You better see a doctor. It looks like you got hepatitis, something like that. Ordinary, valid perception. This is blue, that's red, this is that. That's all. That's how we establish things. So he's picking up the second outline, second heading that he did in the last chapter. You cannot eradicate conventional phenomena by refuting them through investigating whether valid cognition establishes them. You can't eradicate them. There's no conventional because valid cognition doesn't establish it. So, as to assertions about forms and such, we do not hold that valid cognition does not establish them. Valid cognition does establish them. Isn't strange? We all know this, don't we? Let the chapter play out. And they never put the chapter numbers on, so this is page 163 of Ramrim 3. Again, question. Qualm. How can Chandrakirti's commentary on the middle way be correct when it says, the world is not valid in any way? You would see this if you know, and you can't take that the wrong way. So now he explains what's meant there. Reply, that passage refutes the notion that the world's visual consciousnesses and such are valid with regard to reality. Our visual consciousness, normal visual consciousness, we're not Buddhists, is not valid with regard to the ultimate mode of being, the things we look at. We see conventionals mixed with inherent existence. That's what we see. So, it does not refute their validity regarding all objects. Yes, it's valid with regard to this is this, that's that. That's a horse, that's a saddle, etc., and so on. In this vein, Chandrakirti's explanation of the Middle Way commentary says, accordingly, only noble beings are authorities on the contemplation of reality. Those who are not noble beings are not. So those who have seen reality, Aryas, directly, they're the authorities on the contemplation. The ordinary beings who have not seen emptiness directly, or even inferentially, most people, they're not authorities. Those who are not noble beings would be authorities on reality if our acceptance of the world's critique meant that we accept the validity of the world's perception of our analysis of reality. And he quotes Chandrakirti's commentary. If the world were an authority, it would see reality. So what do we bother studying for? That wouldn't. Then what need would there be for those others called noble beings? Why are they noble? Everybody sees the same thing. What would the noble path accomplish? It is not right that fools should be authorities. Gets a little heavy. All right. What do we have? Well, we have to cut there. So we'll leave it at that, fools being authorities. So we'll start next week on next class, on page 164 of the LAM Rim 3. And of course, we have Geshe Sopa's commentary lined up and other things that will provide for your entertainment and illumination, whatever. For whom are we praying for? The grass is red. I don't know who so who are we praying? What else do we have here? So there's plenty of people to pray for who have passed away. All these countless beings that are dying horribly in the Russian invasion of Bakhmut. We can go on. I mean, it's insane. Sutra for the recollection of the noble three jewels. I prostrate to the omniscient one. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavata, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak, Sang Buddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha, Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He's not stained by the realm of desire. He's not stained by the realm of form. He's not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who rise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavad, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction, it is pithy, it is trustworthy, and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. Pardon me. As a further cause for the swift return of Rapo Chögyam Rinpoche, His Holiness recommends that we recite this prayer, which is on the website, called Prayer for the Flourishing of Tsong-kha-pa's Teachings. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When of yore in the presence of Buddha Indraketu he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog, his pure conduct practiced according to the conqueror's orders, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned, since he extensively sought out learning, reverent, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating all for beings and the doctrine, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to explanations of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle, with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle. Heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the three beings' paths, the quick-acting Lord, Vaishravana, Karma-yama, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverent holders of the teaching, and by the increase of power of its patrons, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. We hope that. And we're trying our best here. Soon, Nicholas Venerable Tupten Lunda, or Nikki Vreeland, will return. So we will have the ordained staff ready. 8 verses on training the mind with the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings who will surpass even a wish-granting jewel. I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others out of jealousy treat me badly with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, be released from the bondage of attachment. So our next class will be Wednesday the 22nd, 2 days from now, at 7 o'clock, and we'll continue with Chapter 13, Lam Rim Volume 3, plus other assorted goodies, appetizers, or whatever. No dessert, sorry. You're on your own for dessert. The dessert of the prayers. Anyway, thank you very much for your patient listening. It's a very difficult topic. Uh, Thankfully, we have commentary, etc., so set us straight. Big love to all of you. Take care. Thank you.